Did you know that many of the rights women have today were granted by Islam over 1400 years ago? Yet, countless myths continue to cloud the truth about women's rights in Islam. In today's video, we will explore these misconceptions and reveal the realities, showing you the true position of women in Islam. Women's rights have been a topic of debate for centuries, with many misconceptions shaping people's views. Some argue that Islam oppresses women, while others believe it offers them no rights at all. But is that true? Today, we're going to look past the myths and uncover the real teachings of Islam regarding women's rights. Whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, it's essential to understand what Islam truly says about women's rights. This video will not only clear up common misunderstandings, but it will also help you appreciate the empowering and protective role Islam grants women. From the right to education and work to marriage and inheritance, Islam has a comprehensive approach that supports and uplifts women. We'll be tackling some of the most common myths surrounding women in Islam and comparing them with the realities backed by authentic Islamic teachings. By the end of this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of the true message of Islam when it comes to women's rights. So, if you want to break the misconceptions and learn the truth, stay tuned till the end. You don't want to miss this. Women's rights in Islam. A brief overview. Islam is a religion that recognizes the inherent worth of both men and women, granting them rights and responsibilities that honor their dignity and place in society. However, misconceptions about the status of women in Islam have often led to misunderstandings. It's crucial to understand that Islam, at its core, views men and women as equal in the eyes of Allah, with different roles designed for their complementary strength. Let's break down some of the key points about women's rights in Islam that are often misunderstood. 1. Equality of men and women in the eyes of Allah. One of the most important concepts in Islam is the idea that both men and women are equal in the eyes of Allah. They both have the same spiritual status and are equally accountable for their actions in this world and the hereafter. The Quran makes this point clear in Surah Al-Hujurat 49:13. O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. This verse emphasizes that the value of a person is not determined by their gender, but by their piety and good deeds. So, in the eyes of Allah, men and women are equal in terms of spiritual worth and dignity. 2. Right to knowledge. Islam places great emphasis on knowledge and learning, making it a duty for every Muslim, man and woman alike, to seek knowledge. The first revelation to Prophet Muhammad, peace was, read in the name of your Lord who created. Surah Al-Alaq 96:1. This commandment highlights the importance of education and learning. It's not limited to men, but applies equally to women. Throughout Islamic history, there have been countless examples of women who were scholars, teachers, and leaders in various fields. Aisha Ra, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace, is one of the best-known scholars in Islam, known for her knowledge in jurisprudence, medicine, and history. 3. Right to property and financial independence. Islam was revolutionary in granting women financial autonomy at a time when many cultures treated women as property. In Islam, a woman has the right to own property, manage her finances, and engage in business independently. This right is granted by the Quran. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has made one of them to excel over the other, and because they spend of their wealth for the support of women. So good women are the obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. Surah An-Nisa 4:34. This verse often causes confusion, as it is sometimes misinterpreted as giving men authority over women. In fact, this verse acknowledges the different roles men and women may play in a family, with men being responsible for financial support and women having the right to manage their own wealth. Women's right to property is also reinforced by the Quranic injunctions regarding inheritance. Women are entitled to inherit, and the shares they receive are clearly defined in Surah An-Nisa 4:7, 4:11, 4:12. 4. Right to marriage, consent and protection. Marriage in Islam is a partnership based on mutual respect, consent, and kindness. A woman's right to choose her spouse is enshrined in Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized the importance of a woman's consent in marriage. In fact, there is a famous hadith in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, "A woman has the right to be married to the man of her choice, and no one can force her into a marriage she does not want." Sahih Bukhari. Additionally, Islam provides clear guidance on the importance of treating women with kindness and respect in marriage. The husband is considered a protector and supporter, not an authoritarian figure. The Quran emphasizes this in Surah Ar-Rum 30:21, which speaks about love, mercy, and tranquility as the foundation of a marital relationship. And of his signs is that he created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who give thought. 5. Right to divorce. Contrary to common misconceptions, Islam does not trap women in unhappy or abusive marriages. Women have the right to seek divorce khula if they are unhappy in their marriage. While a husband can initiate divorce, talaq, a woman can also request a divorce through the court if necessary. The right to khula is based on Islamic teachings that prioritize the well-being of both parties, ensuring that no one is forced to stay in a harmful situation. 6. The protection and honor of women. Islam is deeply concerned with the protection, dignity, and honor of women. The teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made it clear that men and women should treat each other with respect and kindness. He said, "The best of you are those who are the best to their women." Tirmidhi, women are guaranteed protection from any form of injustice or abuse in Islam. This protection is not only physical but emotional and psychological as well. Islam establishes a framework where women are safeguarded from exploitation and their rights are preserved at all costs. Common myths about women's rights in Islam. There are numerous misconceptions about the rights of women in Islam, many of which stem from cultural practices, misinterpretations, or lack of understanding of Islamic teachings. In this section, we'll explore some of the most common myths surrounding women's rights in Islam and address them with clarity, backed by authentic Islamic sources. 1. Myth: women in Islam have no rights to education. The myth: many people believe that Islam does not allow women to pursue education or gain knowledge, implying that women are restricted to domestic roles without the opportunity to learn and grow. The reality: this myth is far from the truth. Islam strongly emphasizes the pursuit of knowledge for both men and women. The very first revelation to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the command to read, which applies to all Muslims, regardless of gender. Read in the name of your Lord who created. Surah Al-Alaq 96:1. This command is a clear indication of the importance of education in Islam. Numerous women throughout Islamic history, such as Aisha Ra, Fatima Ra, and others, were scholars, teachers, and intellectual leaders, contributing immensely to various fields such as science, literature, and law. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also said, "Seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim, male and female." Sunan Ibn Majah. Thus, education is not only a right for women but a duty in Islam. 2. Myth: women in Islam are forced into marriage. The myth, another common misconception, is that Islam allows forced marriages, where women have no say in their marriage decisions and are often married off against their will. The reality: Islam clearly prohibits forced marriages. A woman has the right to choose her spouse, and her consent is essential for the marriage to be valid. The Prophet Muhammad, Peace emphasized this principle when he said, "A woman who has been married before has more right to decide about herself than a virgin, and her guardian should not marry her off without her consent." Sahih Muslim, the Quran also affirms this in Surah An-Nisa 4:19. "O you who have believed, it is not lawful for you to inherit women by compulsion." This verse highlights that a woman cannot be forced into marriage. If a woman does not wish to marry someone, her consent must be obtained, and any marriage without her consent is invalid in Islam. 3. Myth: women in Islam are not allowed to work or participate in society. The myth: some people believe that Islam restricts women from working outside the home or participating in social and economic activities, suggesting that their role is solely domestic. The reality: Islam does not prohibit women from working or being active in society. Women in Islam are encouraged to contribute to society in various ways, whether through work, entrepreneurship, or charitable endeavors. The Quran mentions the roles of both men and women as caretakers of the earth, with both genders given the ability to participate in various activities. In fact, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, women were actively involved in trade, education, medicine, and even warfare. Khadija, the Prophet's first wife, was a successful businesswoman, and Aisha was a well-respected scholar and leader in the community. Islam grants women the right to work, and as long as their work is in line with Islamic principles of modesty and ethical conduct, they are free to engage in various professions. 4. Myth: women in Islam are not allowed to inherit property. The myth, a widely spread myth, is that Islam denies women the right to inherit property or wealth, and that inheritance is only reserved for men. The reality: Islam guarantees women the right to inherit property, a right that was revolutionary at the time of its revelation. The Quran clearly outlines the share of inheritance for both men and women in several verses, including Surah An-Nisa 4:7-12, where it states that women are entitled to inherit from both their parents and their spouses. While it is true that a male's share of inheritance is often greater than that of a female, e.g., a son receives twice the share of a daughter, this is based on the fact that in Islamic law, men are responsible for financially supporting their families. This doesn't imply that women are inferior or incapable of managing wealth. It is a system designed to ensure financial stability for both genders within the societal framework. Thus, women have full rights to inherit and own property, and their inheritance is protected by Islamic law. 5. Myth: women in Islam are forced to wear the hijab or burqa. The myth: some people argue that women in Islam are forced to wear the hijab or burqa, viewing these practices as a symbol of oppression rather than a personal choice or religious requirement. The reality: while modesty is emphasized in Islam for both men and women, the choice to wear the hijab, headscarf, or other forms of modest dress is ultimately up to the individual. The Quran instructs women to dress modestly, but does not mandate a specific style of clothing for women. The verse in Surah An-Nur 24:31 says, "And tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their private parts, and not to display their adornment, except that which ordinarily appears thereof, and to wrap a portion of their head covers over their chests." The hijab is seen as a way for women to express their devotion to Allah and maintain modesty, not a tool for oppression. While some women may choose not to wear the hijab, many choose it as an act of faith and empowerment. 6. Myth: women in Islam are oppressed and have no freedom. The myth, one of the most widespread myths, is that Islam oppresses women, forcing them into submissive roles with no freedom or autonomy. The reality: Islam grants women numerous rights that protect their freedom, dignity, and well-being. As mentioned earlier, Islam provides women with the right to education, work, property, marriage, and divorce. It recognizes their roles in society, protects their health and safety, and ensures that they are treated with respect. The perception of oppression often arises from the cultural practices of certain regions or communities, not from the core teachings of Islam. In fact, Islam's teachings on women's rights were revolutionary in the 7th century and remain forward-thinking today. 7. Myth: women in Islam are forbidden to travel or leave the house. The myth: some people believe that Islam restricts women from traveling or leaving their homes, seeing them as confined to domestic spaces. The reality: Islam does not prohibit women from traveling or leaving their homes. Women are free to travel, pursue education, and engage in activities outside the home, as long as they adhere to the principles of modesty and respect for Islamic guidelines. In fact, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, women participated in trade, travel, and even military expeditions. For instance, Salama Ra, one of the wives of the Prophet, peace be upon him, traveled with him on important missions and played a key role in early Islamic history. Islam recognizes that women have responsibilities both in the home and in the wider community, and traveling for educational, social, or professional purposes is not forbidden. Women's rights in Islam realities, in contrast to the many myths and misconceptions about women's rights in Islam, the reality is that Islam grants women a broad and profound range of rights that promote their dignity, equality, and empowerment. These rights, which were revolutionary at the time of Islam's revelation, continue to stand as principles of justice and fairness. In this section, we'll explore the true realities of women's rights in Islam, backed by Islamic teachings from the Quran and Hadith. 1. Right to equality and dignity. Islam, from the very beginning, emphasized the intrinsic equality of all human beings. Both men and women are considered equal in the eyes of Allah, with each being valued for their faith, actions, and character. In the Quran, Allah says, "Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you." Surah Al-Hujurat 49:13. This verse makes it clear that true honor and dignity are based on one's relationship with Allah, not on gender. Women are given equal rights to dignity, respect, and the opportunity to fulfill their potential in both personal and social spheres. Their worth is not determined by societal norms, but by their actions, character, and devotion to Allah. 2. Right to education and knowledge. As discussed earlier, Islam places a high emphasis on knowledge for both men and women. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim, male and female." Sunan Ibn Majah. The right to education in Islam is not gender-specific, and women have the same right to seek knowledge as men. Throughout history, many women in the Muslim world have been renowned scholars, poets, and philosophers. For instance, Aisha Ra, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a respected scholar, and many of the hadiths we rely on today were transmitted by her. Women's rights to education are also reinforced by the Quran, which encourages the pursuit of knowledge as a means of spiritual and intellectual growth. Thus, women in Islam are not only encouraged to learn, but are empowered to do so throughout their lives. 3. Right to work and economic independence. Islam acknowledges the importance of women's economic rights. Women have the right to work, own property, run businesses, and engage in various economic activities. The Quran states, "For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned." Surah An-Nisa 4:32. This verse establishes the principle of financial autonomy, allowing women to earn and possess wealth in their own right. Additionally, women in Islam are not financially obligated to provide for their families, as men hold the primary responsibility for financial support. Therefore, a woman's income is hers to keep, and she has the right to use it as she wishes. Islamic history provides numerous examples of women being successful entrepreneurs, such as Khadija, the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad, who was a wealthy businesswoman before and after her marriage. 4. Right to marriage and consent. In Islam, marriage is based on mutual consent and respect. A woman has the right to choose her spouse, and her consent is essential for a marriage to be valid. The Prophet Muhammad, emphasized this in the following hadith: "A woman who has been married before has more right to decide about herself than a virgin, and her guardian should not marry her off without her consent." Sahih Muslim. This right is further supported by the Quran, which makes it clear that marriage without the woman's consent is not valid. Do not prevent them from marrying their husbands when they agree among themselves in a lawful manner. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:230. 5. Right to inheritance. One of the most empowering rights given to women in Islam is the right to inherit property and wealth. In pre-Islamic Arabia, women were often denied inheritance altogether. However, Islam granted women a rightful share of inheritance, ensuring their financial independence and security. The Quran clearly states, "For men is a share of what the parents and relatives leave, and for women is a share of what the parents and relatives leave, be it little or much, an obligatory share." Surah An-Nisa 4:7. The specific portions of inheritance are outlined in Islamic law, and while a male's share is often twice that of a female, e.g., a son inherits twice the amount of a daughter, this is due to the fact that men are financially responsible for their families. This does not diminish the value of the woman's inheritance rights. It simply reflects the broader societal structure where men have a greater financial responsibility. Women's inheritance rights are a means of providing them with financial security, ensuring they have access to wealth in their own right, which is legally protected. 6. Right to modesty and personal choice in dress. One of the key aspects of a woman's dignity in Islam is her right to dress modestly, in a manner that protects her privacy and ensures her honor. The Quran instructs both men and women to lower their gaze and dress modestly, and tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their private parts, and not to display their adornment, except that which ordinarily appears thereof, and to wrap a portion of their head covers over their chests. Surah An-Nur 24:31. While modest dress is a requirement, it is not meant to restrict women, but to protect them from objectification and to maintain their respect in society. Women in Islam have the right to choose how they dress within the framework of modesty, whether that includes wearing a hijab, a burqa, or simply dressing in a way that reflects their personal beliefs. The wearing of the hijab, for many Muslim women, is an act of faith and empowerment, symbolizing their devotion to Allah and their desire to maintain their dignity. 7. Right to divorce and protection from abuse. Islam acknowledges the right of women to seek divorce, a right that was nearly unheard of in many societies prior to the advent of Islam. The Quran provides clear guidelines for divorce, ensuring that it is a process that respects both parties involved. If a woman feels her marriage is untenable, she has the right to initiate divorce, known as khula, provided the process is conducted fairly. Additionally, Islam forbids any form of abuse, whether physical, emotional, or psychological. The Prophet Muhammad, said, "The best of you are those who are the best to their wives." Sunan Ibn Majah. Islamic law requires that a woman's rights are safeguarded, and any mistreatment or violation of her rights is prohibited. A woman in an abusive marriage has the right to seek protection, and if necessary, to seek a divorce without fear of reprisal or condemnation. 8. Right to participate in society and public life. Islam encourages women to be active participants in society, whether in political, economic, educational, or social spheres. Women in Islam have the right to vote, engage in business, serve as leaders, and contribute to their communities in meaningful ways. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad, women were involved in all aspects of public life, including governance and warfare. For example, Aisha Ra led military campaigns, and Salama Ra provided important advice on matters of governance. Women today, like men, have the right to shape their communities and contribute to society in ways that align with their talents and interests. The role of women in Islam, a holistic view. The role of women in Islam is often misunderstood due to the portrayal of Islam in some cultures and through distorted interpretations of religious texts. However, when we look at the teachings of Islam, we see a profound and multidimensional understanding of a woman's role within society, family, and spirituality. In Islam, women are not confined to one role, but are honored as individuals with the right to pursue various facets of life according to their capabilities and interests. This section will present a holistic view of the role of women in Islam, highlighting their roles in family, society, spirituality, and community. 1. Women as spiritual equals. Islam regards men and women as equal in terms of their spiritual responsibilities and potential. The Quran makes it clear that both genders have the same capacity to attain piety, righteousness, and closeness to Allah. Whoever does righteous deeds, whether male or female, while he is a believer, those will enter paradise. Surah An-Nisa 4, 124. This verse reinforces the fact that spiritual merit is not determined by gender, but by one's faith and actions. Women in Islam are seen as equally capable of spiritual growth, worship, and contributing to the establishment of a just society based on Islamic principles. Women have the same access to the rewards of the hereafter as men, and their acts of devotion, charity, and worship are valued equally. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also highlighted the importance of women's spirituality, with numerous hadiths emphasizing the critical role of women in maintaining religious practices within the home and society. 2. Women as mothers, the cornerstone of society. One of the most revered roles for women in Islam is that of motherhood. Islam acknowledges the immense importance of mothers in shaping individuals and society as a whole. The Quran describes the hardship a mother faces during pregnancy and childbirth and enjoins kindness, care, and respect towards them, and we have enjoined upon man care for his parents. His mother carried him with hardship upon hardship, and his weaning is in 2 years. Be grateful to me and to your parents. To me is the final destination. Surah Luqman 31:14. This verse shows the high esteem in which Islam holds the role of mothers. Islam teaches that a mother's role is central to the moral and emotional development of a child, and by extension, to the strength of society. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized this when he said, "Paradise lies at the feet of your mother." Sunan Ibn Majah. Thus, a woman's role as a mother is not only a privilege, but also a responsibility. Islam encourages mothers to provide love, care, and nurturing to their children, instilling in them good character, faith, and respect for others. In this way, women in Islam are seen as the backbone of societal development, with a powerful impact on future generations. 3. Women as wives, partners in life. In Islam, marriage is viewed as a partnership based on mutual respect, love, and compassion. A woman's role as a wife is not one of servitude, but one of equality and partnership. The Quran offers guidance on the mutual rights and responsibilities of both husband and wife, emphasizing kindness, compassion, and respect. And live with them in kindness. For if you dislike them, perhaps you dislike something, and Allah makes therein much good. Surah An-Nisa 4:19. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, demonstrated the importance of a loving and respectful relationship between spouses, encouraging husbands to treat their wives with the utmost kindness and care. He, peace be upon him, said, "The best of you are those who are the best to their wives." Sunan Ibn Majah. In an Islamic marriage, Both the husband and wife have rights and obligations towards each other, and both have a role in fostering a balanced and harmonious household. A woman's role as a wife is to support her husband in his responsibilities, while also having her own rights and agency within the marriage. This balanced partnership is fundamental to a healthy, thriving family and community. 4. Women as leaders contributing to society. Islam recognizes women's capacity for leadership and acknowledges that they can play significant roles in all areas of life, including governance, education, and social reform. Women in the time of the Prophet Muhammad (Peace were involved in various spheres of leadership. For example, the Queen of Sheba Bilqis is mentioned in the Quran as a wise and capable ruler, demonstrating that leadership is not confined to men. Additionally, the Prophet Muhammad (peace appointed women to important roles in the early Islamic community. For instance, women were involved in social welfare, nursing the wounded during battles, and even participating in political decision-making. A modern example of a woman in leadership from Islamic history is Aisha Ra, who played an important role in Islamic jurisprudence and was involved in political matters, including a pivotal role in the Battle of the Camel. Islamic teachings do not limit women to domestic roles. Instead, they empower women to take on leadership positions in all fields of life, contributing their knowledge, skills, and wisdom for the betterment of society. 5. Women as educators shaping minds. Women in Islam have a crucial role in education, both within the family and beyond. The Quran encourages both men and women to seek knowledge, as knowledge is seen as a means to better oneself and contribute positively to society. Read, "And your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen taught man that which he knew not." Surah Al-Alaq 96, 1-5. Women in Islam are not only encouraged to seek education, but also to teach others. Throughout history, many women in the Muslim world have made significant contributions to various fields of knowledge, including science, medicine, literature, and theology. For example, women like Fatima al-Fishri, who founded the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, played a pivotal role in the dissemination of knowledge. In Islam, the family is considered the first educational institution, and mothers play an integral role in the moral and intellectual development of their children. Thus, women in Islam are both recipients and transmitters of knowledge, fostering the growth and advancement of their communities. 6. Women as active community members. Islam encourages both men and women to contribute to their communities, whether through charitable actions, community building, or social service. Women have historically played active roles in community life, participating in charitable projects, helping the needy, and supporting social justice initiatives. The Prophet Muhammad (peace encouraged both men and women to engage in acts of charity, stating, "The best of people are those who are most beneficial to others." Daraquatni Muslim women today continue to contribute significantly to their communities, whether through volunteer work, social activism, or providing essential services in healthcare, education, and public service.